Let's turn to Delta State, where the Nigerian Army says its efforts in tackling crude oil theft in the Niger Delta region is yielding positive results as it commends Tantita Security Services for the robust partnership towards curbing the activities of these oil thieves and boosting the nation's oil production. The General Officer commanding 6th Division of the Nigerian Army, Major General Jamal Abdussalam, who said this while inaugurating the new transit accommodation reconstructed by Tantita Security Services. Ikenamechi reports.
Crude oil theft is a major crime here in the Niger Delta region. The Nigerian Army, in partnership with a private security, Tantita Security Services, have been succeeding in apprehending these economic saboteurs. Today, to further strengthen the ties between them, the General Officer commanding 6th Division is here to inaugurate this transit accommodation reconstructed by Tantita Security Services.
The transit accommodation to be commissioned today highlights the impactful discourse of corporate social responsibility and the spirit of jointness. I therefore commend the efforts and contributions of Tantita Security Services Nigeria Limited in achieving this laudable project.
The Tantita Security Services came in what was formerly known as the Old Army Day Secondary School has now been transformed and remodeled into a modern soldiers' transit accommodation.
This project has been a very interesting project. Any project that is worth supporting, that is going to become part of the development of this environment, must be pursued with vigor.
Inaugurating the project, the GOC identifies how it will boost the morale of his men who are in the forefront of curbing oil theft.
Tantita is an example of such cooperation. We have had very good working relationship with them, and we still have such relationship, and we continue to do that. And you can see this project is born out of that good relationship that we have enjoyed. Everywhere operations are ongoing. And from what we have seen, the oil output has increased.
For the private security outfit, it is just the beginning of more collaborations as it tasked others to support the army.
This is the least we can do. It is not enough. We are also going to seize this opportunity to ask others to look at projects like this.
The accommodation has bedrooms, kitchens and other facilities. Ikenamechi, TVC News, Efrun, Delta State.
The commemoration of the September the 11th attack on the United States is 23 years today, and for so many reasons it remains indelible, not just in the minds of Americans, but the world at large. Moyo Thomas reports.
September 11th, 2001 was when the world came face to face with the extent terrorists could go to perpetrate evil against humanity.
Come on, you gotta get out of here. Come on. What came down though? What came down? We crashed. The other trade center's down. It's down. It's down.
That act redefined the word terrorism as it became a more popular lexicon across the world. Ground Zero in New York has been turned into a memorial that reminds the U.S. of its citizens that died in the dastardly act. Today, 23 years later, the world is still not free from the pangs of terrorism, despite increased alert and security measures put in place. The changing landscape in global security has impacted the world at large.
Many countries felt exposed, and they started to take measures. Remember, airports were not such serious as far as checking was concerned. That was the time when we started having so many screens, so many X-ray machines, rigorous checking of passengers. And
the world from that point started seeing the rise of terrorist groups, from Al-Qaeda to ISIS, Boko Haram and other unnamed insurgents wreaking havoc across countries. The task before world leaders is overcoming insecurity.
To be sincere, there is a lot of credibility gap in terms of our leaders, especially African leaders. Many of them are involved in what I might call called negligence, because sometimes their cronies, they mislead them, they give them wrong information.
At the height of election campaigns, both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are part of activities that honor the memory of the more than 3,000 Americans killed in the World Trade Center. Moyo Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were at the same September the 11th memorial this morning after a fiery debate, the first of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. They debated policy, but personal attacks also dominated the 90-minute event. Ms. Harris said people leave Trump rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. He said people don't go to hers in the first place. Mr. Trump criticized Harris's record on immigration and the border, and also her shifting policy positions, while Harris blamed him for Trump abortion bans and the January 6 attacks on the U.S. Capitol. Now, let's expand this further. Global Affairs analyst Bola Adediran joins me now on the news to discuss the commemoration of September the 11th. Good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me, Precious.
This has become an annual event in the U.S. to commemorate the September the 11th attack and then remember those who died in the process. But this is not just the U.S. commemorating, the world is also commemorating. How did that particular event change the world?
Oh, it has had a significant impact on the world at large, not only in the U.S. It's obviously changed the nature of U.S. politics and the sort of debates that you find in the U.S. But globally, it has had significant consequences. And I can think of 4 or 5 examples of how it has. In the first place, for instance, I think that 9/11 sort of morphed into this global war on terror from the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan in October 2001 to the invasion of Iraq. We are also seeing other countries sort of galvanize themselves into combating Islamic terrorism. We can also say that 9/11 had impact on, for example, on the expansion of security agencies' powers. The Patriot Act in the U.S., for instance, the Snoopers Charter in the U.K. are some of the examples of how countries and state actors have enacted laws that expand the powers of security agencies to snoop and to sort of invade people's privacies. And then we can also talk about, for instance, the policing of brown and black bodies at international borders. 9/11 is one of the consequences of that. 9/11 has resulted in the fact that certain individuals, certain people who are from a certain demographic are particularly singled out at international borders, and their presence and their identity is securitized. And finally, I can think that 9/11 in some ways has also changed global dynamics. If you think of the Gaza war since October 7, 2023, the prosecution of that war is in somewhat a response to some of the events of 9/11. In fact, the Israelis and the Jews
can I quickly just...
Yeah.
Sorry, let me come here because you're making very significant points that I don't want to lose, and I want to expand on that further quickly because I have just like a minute left thereabout. You were talking about how this has, impacted the world, and we've seen the U.S. presence in the Middle East ever since. But is the Middle East still the center of terrorist activities, and how well have we been able to curb extremist, activities around the world as well?
I mean, yes, the Middle East is still very hot. I wouldn't say it's particularly the center of terrorist activities. There are obviously very many terrorist actors operating within the Middle East. Not only the Hezbollahs of this world, the Hamas or the Houthi rebels, but across, even in North Africa, in parts of West Africa, we're seeing terrorist organizations really come to the fore and challenge state actors. But yes, 9/11 impacted the Middle East in significant ways. It changed the dynamics in Iraq, for instance. The emergence of ISIS and ISIL and other terrorist groups is a result of some of the actions of the U.S. and the way that they prosecuted the war on terror post 9/11. So yes, definitely the Middle East landscape has changed as a result of that.
Thank you so much for your time. Global Affairs Analyst Bola Adediro, always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.